Good morning, stampers and crafters. Well, Happy New Year. Here we are, January 2020. And we are on, I believe, episode 29 of Technique Tuesday. And I have a really fun technique for you today. Pardon me. I'm still fighting a cold. I've had a cold since before Christmas. Woohoo. But today is a really fun technique. It has to do with doing backgrounds, and it's called Dappled Watercolor Background. It's just a really fun way to use to do watercolors, and you can come out with so many different little backgrounds that are just fun, and it's most of all, it's just fun to do. So I'm just going to jump right in, and all the supplies that we are using today, all the stamp sets and the dies, are from the new mini catalog and the celebrations. I will have links to them in the description below, which means several of these items are free items you can get with a qualifying purchase. So let's jump in. The first thing you're going to need, I went to the kitchen store and got myself this really nice little cutting board. I use this a lot when I'm doing watercolor because I like to tape my project down so that it doesn't warp as much, and you can move it around, and it also protects your workspace. So that's what this is. So what you will first need is watercolor paper. And this Fluid 100 watercolor paper is just phenomenal watercolor paper. It's very high quality. There'll be a link to it. Stampin' Up! Sells it. Or if you don't have this one and you have other watercolor paper, I would suggest getting the heavier poundage, I guess they call it. So this is, I'm going to say from the feel of this, it doesn't say on here, but I'm going to say this is probably at least 140, and it's a nice thick watercolor paper. So I've cut a couple pieces of that, and I'm going to put it on my board, and what I have here is painter's tape. And this blue one, if you get the blue or the green, it's used on trim, like if a painter's going to mask trim. So since it is a trim paint, it's a lot more sensitive, less likely to peel their paint when they're using it. So it's just easier to remove from your paper. So I'm going to tape this down. And when you're doing watercolor, you'll see that a lot of people do this taping, and it's really kind of nice because if you decide to use the whole piece that you're creating with this tape, you've created a little border around your image, and it just really makes it pop. This one we will be die cutting, so it's not real, important that I get this line straight, but I am OCD enough that I try to. So we're going to tape this down real nice. And then I'm also, when we get ready to remove it, excuse me, I'm going to show you a trick for when you use tape to tape something down, how to remove it without damaging your paper. And I'm sure if you were using regular masking tape that isn't the sensitive masking tape, it would probably work in helping you with that, getting the tape off without damaging your paper. So I'll show you that when we get ready to remove this. So now we've got this nice surface, and I've brought in a little glass of water. Now I am using my aqua painter, and you can use your aqua painter for this, but I needed more water than, and it would just take longer to do squeezing this and getting the water out. Now I do have water in it, in which it will help keep my brush wet, but I'm just going to use a little cup of water so I can have a lot of water on hand. I've got an inexpensive brush here, and it's just, how did I get ink on me already? It's just a wider brush so I have more room on the surface. I'm going to use that. And keep your lid handy for your aqua painter, because I'm going to show you the trick with this dappling, as they call it. So what I want to do is I'm going to dip my brush in the water, and I want to get my paper nice and wet. Okay. And when you're working with watercolor paper, usually on the wet on wet, you want the paper takes the color better when it's wet, so you want a nice shiny surface there, and it prepares the paper for color. And that's the same with watercolor paints, or we're using regular inks today, so it'll work for that too. So I'm going to make sure that surface is nice and wet, and we're going to bring in some colors. So I want to create this one here for you today, and I've used some blues and some yellows and a couple little dapples of purple in there just for a little accent. Now you can use any assortment of colors for this. This one, I just did some blues, and believe it or not, I dappled some Wink of Stella on there. That would make a really pretty night sky. But I'm going to show you how to get the light and the dark, or if you just want a mix of colors, the whatever inks you have, it's going to work with that. So what I want to do is I want to have a Pacific Point base. I'm just going to pick that blue. And I'm going to bring in some pineapple punch. And I think I'm going to dapple a little bit of gorgeous grape in there. So let's open these up. And I already have ink in my lids. And what I did is I did just use, since I'm using so much on here, I did put a couple of drops into my lid right from my re-inker. Okay. I'm going to move my water a little bit, or I'm going to spill it. Get my brushes over here. So I need a little bit more yellow, so we're using the pineapple punch. So I'm just going to put a couple of drops right there in the lid. And it's not going to hurt it. And since I do so many techniques where I use inks out of the lid, we're just going to go with it. I have a little bit of purple in there. So now we've got our surface nice and wet. I'm going to go ahead and dampen that again, because I was jibber-jabbering and it dried up a little bit. The wetter it is, the more your color is going to move with your project. Okay. So now, keep your little aqua painter. Now you can use your aqua painter for this part if you want. It'll work fine. I'm just going to use this brush here, get it nice and wet, pick up some ink, get my brush nice and saturated there, and then I'm just going to wipe it on my paper. It's basically a wet on wet watercolor wash is what you're doing. And I'm going to try to do a little bit of a gradient here, where it's going to go from dark to light. And pick up a little more water here. And then what you can do, just to give it a little bit of a different look, pick up your project and let the ink run. See how it's running down the paper? It just gives it a nice little look there. Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit more there. You can keep layering it as dark or as light as you like. And do know that when it dries, it normally is a little bit lighter than what you see when it's wet. Okay, I'm going to run that a little bit down the paper, pick it up sideways, let it run. Okay. Now I'm going to take my aqua painter and the lid. Where did my little lid run off to? I just told you not to look. Okay, so you have your lid. Now I'm going to pick up some yellow with my aqua painter. You know, squeeze, make sure it's nice and wet. And then with the opening of your lid, flick it onto your paper. Hopefully you can see that. And I'm just flicking some color, some spots onto the paper. Okay. If you don't want to do it that way, get your pen wet and just tap it on your finger. But doing it that way, get ready, because it's gonna spread a little farther around your workspace. So we just dappled, and I'm gonna rinse off my aqua painter before I dap it into the purple there, because I don't want to contaminate my purple lid. And I'm going to pick up some purple, and I'm just going to dab a little on there. But I like doing it with the lid because you get a little bit better splatter with it. See there? And anything goes. You could use any colors for this. It's a lot of fun to do. Look at that. And now, I'm going to clean this off. And if you want just some like light dots, some lighter colors, just drip some water on there, or splatter some water on there. I'm going to clean my lid off there a little bit. So if you just want some light spots on there, just flick some clean water on there, and it'll lighten, give you light spots. So it works really well with like this. See where I've got the light spots? This is only one color. It's the Pacific Point, and then I did the light spots, and then I flicked the Wink of Stella on there the same way I did with this, you do with your Wink of Stella brush. As a matter of fact, we can just do that just to show you if I have my Wink of Stella here. So here's your Wink of Stella. Make sure it's flowing. You know, squeeze it, get some into your pan there, and then just flick it on there using the lid of your Wink of Stella, and it'll add nice little sparkles to it. I think my Wink of Stella is a little about running out, but you know, when my Wink of Stella runs out, I don't throw it away. What you can do, here's another quick tip. Take the lid off and pour just a little bit of rubbing alcohol in there. Just a little bit, a few drops, 3 to 4 drops. Close it back up, shake it up, and you will get more life out of this. There's a lot still left in there when you do that. So you can do as much or as little as you want right here, okay? So I'm going to leave that be, and I'm going to bring in the heat tool. Now you can either let it just dry on its own. You can pick it up, let it run a little bit if it's still wet, or you can bring in your heat tool, which is what we're going to do here today. And you'll see it's going to lighten up as it dries. And by it being taped down, it'll let it dry flat. I'm just wiping off some of the excess here. And as it dries, you can see the little sparkles of Wink of Stella in there. Let's see if I can bring it up to the camera for you. You see the little sparkles in there and the different colors. It's a really fun technique. You can do so many things with it. See how it's turning lighter? It's not as dark when it dries. I'm just kind of pressing down on it. When it's hot, it kind of helps it flatten out. And now the trick I was telling you about to get your tape off without peeling the paper, start your tape, and just heat it just a little bit. And what happens is the heat softens the glue and it comes right up. So what I do is, while my heat gun's going, just grab it, lightly heat where it's attached, and it peels it right up without tearing the paper. And there we go. So it came right out. Now, see what I meant about a little white frame? It really does look nice. I kind of didn't have it taped down real well there, but you could probably hit that with a little eraser and get it off if you needed it. But we are going to do one more, and we're just going to do one solid color, and we're going to make, what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to make a night sky in blues. So let's try that. I'm going to close some of these. And I'm going to put a couple more drops of ink into the well of my Pacific Point. Now, if you don't want this ink in the lid of your stamp pads, simply wipe it out with a damp rag or a paper towel, and it'll come right out. So let's tape this one down. Looks like I splattered on some of my white that I needed there. You can get these little cutting boards at your local kitchen store. I think I might have spent maybe $10 on this. It's one of those that it's got a smooth finish, and you can put it in your dishwasher. So that means, it's not going to warp like a regular wood one when it gets wet. So I don't know what it's made of, but I like to keep it, and it's a nice size for my workspace. So let's do this one and make a gradient blue. Try to make our night sky. I've got a little blue still left on my brush here, but that's okay. Make sure that's nice and wet. Let's pick up some blue. See how the color moves with the water? That's the same way it does when you're using regular watercolor paint. Your colors are going to follow the pools of water. I'm going to put a little darker up here at the top. And then let's let it run. We're letting it run down. I like the dripped look. I think it's really pretty. And since we're going to be doing a rain type, cloudy sky, I want those little runs in there. Let that do that. You tap it up here, let it run down. Okay. Now, we'll take our aqua painter with some just clean water. I always keep a little towel with me to pick up any big runs or anything, so it's not all over my workspace. So we're going to take our aqua painter, we're just going to splatter some regular clean water on there, and it's going to give it some light colored, I'm going to say they're going to be raindrops on this project. It really is fun to play with. Try your different colors. If you have alcohol inks, try those. It's all in whatever you want to do. Pick up some of my big here. I'm going to run a little bit because I have a pretty big pool right there. Oh, I've had this cold. I've had this cold since before Christmas. The colds this year are really something. I mean, I guess it could be a flu, but I didn't get my flu shot this year. Okay, I kind of like the way that looks, so I'm going to quit playing with it. And I'm going to add a little bit of Stella shine in there. Let's get our Stella going here. I guess I should have filled it up before I started the tutorial. I don't think I have another one on hand, so let me see if I can get some out of this. There we go. We got a little pool going there. Now I'm going to flick some on there. I like the idea. I saw somebody using their cap to do this. I used to use my finger and my fingernail, and of course, you know me, I don't mind getting ink all over me, but gets a little messy. This just kind of makes it a little neater and easy to do. Oh, this is going to be really pretty. One more. You know me, I like that shiny, sparkly stuff. So here's what it looks like before I dry it. See the little sparkles of Stella in there? Now let's dry it. And it doesn't take long to dry, this watercolor paper. I wouldn't try this with regular paper. You might be able to do it with maybe the shimmer white, but since you're using so much water, that much water on regular paper will make it pile up. In other words, kind of disintegrate. Oh, it looks really good with the sparkles in there. This would be a nice night sky. Use for a night sky, I'd do maybe try your Night of Navy as your base with the Winkler splatters. Now, if you were to take regular water now, with it dry, take your clean water and splatter it, it's not going to really have the same effect. It's going to actually leave kind of little dots, but that's a cool effect too. So I'm just going to add a couple on here. And it will it's not going to do it as much as when it's wet, but it will lift the color just a tad in a few spots. Okay, now while our heat gun's going, remember we want to lightly heat our tape and it'll peel right up. Try to do this one-handed. There we go. Isn't that pretty? A little bit of gradient where you let it run down. Some white spots and of course a little Stella in there. All right, let's move this and make a card with this. So what I want to do, I'm going to bring in the Stitch So Sweetly. These are new dies that are in the mini catalog. I'll have a link to them. I'm going to take this big one, and it's a scallop die, and it's also got stitching on it. It's really pretty. So let me run this through my die cut machine. And, you know, with a piece bigger than what you need, you can kind of move it and pick, you know, what look you want. Okay, I want a little bit of that dark there, so I'm going to put my die up toward the corner there. Let's die cut that and see how it turns out. Oh, I really like that. That turned out really nice. Okay, so now let's make our little umbrella. And this is also, let me put this away here. This set is also in the new catalog. It's this cute little umbrella set, and it comes with a coordinating punch. So now I decided I wanted something really colorful for my umbrella. So what I want to do is I'm going to make a rainbow umbrella. So we'll take this. We need our embossing buddy. It doesn't really matter as much with white, unless, you know, as when you're using dark. I'm going to go ahead and use it because I like to stay in the habit of using it. Let's bring in our Versamark. And I'm going to white emboss this. Am I doing this right? Let's see. Yeah, do it right here. Wanted to make sure it was going to go into my punch correctly. And I have a little piece of scrap paper here that I'm going to use to catch my white emboss powder. And then that way you can just pick it up and dump it right back into your container. And we'll heat set that. You almost have to have white emboss powder at kind of an angle when you're heating so you can see that it's melted. The light will reflect off it, and when it's shiny, then it's set. So I want a little rainbow, so I'm going to bring in some Pacific Point that'll go with my background. How about some Granny Apple Green? So let's take a little bit of our sponge dauber here, our Pacific Point. Let's just make a little rainbow umbrella here. And then let's take maybe some Granny Apple Green. My dauber's rolled away. Kind of blend it in there a little bit. It's easier to do this before you punch it because the piece is a little bit bigger. Just my preference anyway. Let's add a little more green. I like that green. It's really pretty. It's bright. Okay. And how about we'll bring in our pineapple punch. and its daughter. Kind of blend it in so you have smooth lines. How about a little bit of bright poppy parade on the other side there? You blend it a little on the edge of your yellow, you'll have a little more orange. Okay, got that. And now normally what I do, because you've got color on your white embossing, just take a Kleenex and buff it. It'll come right off and make your white bright again. See there? There we go. So now let's punch that out. Plus, when you sponge it before you cut it, you've got it all the way around the edges, so you don't have any extra white edges that you don't want. And while we're there, let's go ahead and punch out the handle of the umbrella. Set a punch aside here. And you can use a glue dot for this, but I don't have my glue dots, so I'm just going to take a little bit of glue here. Put it on the tip. Oh, I dropped it. Oh, I actually dropped it glue side up, so lucky me. And while that's drying, let's make some clouds. So for the clouds, let's bring in our balmy blue. Put this away, and what I'm going to use, here's another set called Mountain Air, and it's got this adorable little cloud, and it comes with a coordinating die. So let me get my little cloud here. You know, it's a pretty rare day when I'm stamping without my Stamparatus, but this is pretty simple. So I want 3 clouds. So I'm going to go ahead and ink that up. I'm going to stamp it off once and then stamp it. Because see how dark that is? I kind of wanted a more light and fluffy cloud. So let's do 3 of those. Stamp it off. And now we have our 3 clouds. And with that Mountain Air set, which is an amazing set, I'll show it to you here real quick. You have these double stamps, and I'm glad Stampin' Up! Started doing this, where you basically can use the back sides of your stamps to create your shadows. But it comes with this awesome little mountain range and some pine trees, and it has a coordinating die set. And the trees, the mountain. So I'm just going to use this little cloud die here. And let's cut out our clouds real quick. I have my die cut machine off to the side here. And it's a heavy one because it's power, so it's a little hard to move into screen, but I'm just basically die cutting these. There we go. We have our 3 little clouds. And now we're going to make the greeting. And in this set is this adorable little showered with love. And I really like it like that, but I wanted to step it up a little bit. So I'm going to show you how I did that. So what we're going to do is we'll take out the stamp. So I only want to white emboss the showered with. So I'm going to take my black scrap and make sure you use your embossing buddy for this part, because you don't want, it's really fine lettering and you don't want embossing powder where you don't want it. So I don't want to get Versamark on the word love. So I'm going to bring in a little tiny post-it note. And all I'm going to do is mask off that word love right there. Just going to cover it up so that when I use the Versamark, it's not going to get on there. Ink it up with your Versamark. And then always remember to remove your piece, which I forgot to do before. And now let's white emboss that. Okay, so now we got that. And all I did is actually just trim it out. If you have a tiny little square punch, I suppose you could do that. But it's pretty simple, short work of it. Now we have our showered with. And I took the word love from the well-written dies. So I'm going to take the word love, and I'm actually just going to cut that out with my scrap white. Oh, I don't have my my die brush with me, but I can just pop this out of here. And there we have our little love. And now let's assemble this. I'm going to put this tiny little stamp away so I don't lose it. So now we need our white card base, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Oh, I practiced for it. Some people are really good at just folding it to get it even. I have to score mine. So there we have our card base. And let's create our image piece. So I want my love to be at a certain spot, and we're going to build around the greeting. So let me glue that in place first. If you have double-sided adhesive, you could use it when you die cut this, but I'm just as quick at putting a little bit of glue on there as getting my die cut or my double-sided adhesive sheets ready for a die cut. And I'm going to pop this one up, so I'm just going to take a Stampin' Dimensional, which fits perfectly on there. And let's put it about right there. Okay, now our umbrella, I'm kind of going to want this hanging off just a little bit. So I'm only going to put dimensionals. Well, you could actually put dimensionals across the whole way, and I'll show you a trick. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll put 1, 2, 3. And then if you have like something really tiny like this, you know, those edges of your dimensionals, just trim them. Just trim and make yourself a little tiny strip. So that's all I'm going to do here. Just trim myself a little tiny strip. You know, you might have a pop-up issue if you're cutting dimensionals in half. Mini dimensionals at that. I love popping things up. I think it just adds something to your project. So let's put that right on our umbrella stem there. Okay, I'm not going to take the one that's hanging over this side yet. I'm not going to take the adhesive off that yet. And I'll show you why when we go to put everything together. So let's put our umbrella about right there. Let's do a few clouds here. Let's put a dimensional there. I think I'm going to add a little mini there so it doesn't collapse. Let's see, let's put that one just offset the center just a little bit. And now I want to do the same thing I did with the umbrella here. I'm going to put one dimensional on the part that's going to stick here. And then the mini that I'm going to put on the edge, I'm not going to peel the casing off yet. So we're just going to remove the casing on this one. Let's put it about right there. Okay, and our last cloud. We'll do opposite, not peel the casing off this side yet. Set it about, oops, forgot to take the casing off the one side. Let's set it about right there. Now bring in your card base, and we're going to pop up this whole piece. So these areas are going to be taller. So what you want to do is take your casing off of those. Having trouble grabbing it. Easier said than done, huh? And now, so that you have the right height, add another dimensional over the top of those, over the side ones that are overhanging. See what I mean? See where it's overhanging? I added a second dimensional on the top of there. I'm going to do the same on this one. Same on this one. And now I'll put my regular dimensionals on my piece. I use all parts of my dimensionals. So if you have edges, use them in the middle there. So now by adding those extra dimensionals over the pieces that are overhanging, you're the same height as the rest of it. Pardon me. And then just center it on your project. Look about right there. And looky there. So if you want to, which you may not need to do on this one I had added some little, where are they? There are those cute little things. They are clear epoxy embellishments. I added those on this, and a little one on my umbrella. Oh, here they are. They're clear, hard to see. These clear epoxies. So I'm just going to take a round one. Let me get my, take your big tool is the easiest way to deal with these. So I'm going to take that. I want to put one on my umbrella. And look at how pretty it makes it. And you could take these little raindrop ones and just add a couple on there. You can't see them probably on film as well as you can in person. But there you go. That was a quick card with a really fun background. Here's the original. This one I added some yellows and purple too. This one's simply blues and are shiny. This one I did without doing a wash background. I wet the paper and then I just used the dapple technique, dappling it with yellow and greens and a couple dapples of the Pacific Point. And it came up with this really pretty background. And then I used the new Timeless Tropical, which is also in the new catalog. This is the stamp set, but it also comes with this really fun pineapple die and an aloha. And that's all I did here is I die cut that pineapple in Whisper White, die cut the aloha, laid it on Whisper White, and then just trimmed around it to make the mount for the word, and then attached it with dimensionals. So it's a really fun technique. You know, there's so many neat papers out there, these designer series papers, but you know, sometimes it's just fun to play with ink. So this is one of those, and I hope you give it a try and you had fun today, enjoyed today's project. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you have a happy stamping day. Bye-bye now.